Let's talk about some high-level concepts of Docker. Seth just spoke about containerization. We can take a closer look at how this can be done with Docker. When we work with Docker, we are taking a Docker image and asking the Docker daemon to launch this as a container on the host. I'm doing some work with Redis. I can very quickly launch a Redis container in my development environment. A container is using operating system level virtualization to run a process with an isolated file system and process list. Internally, this is implemented with a feature of the Linux kernel called cgroups and namespaces. The image we launch the container from is retrieved from a registry like Docker Hub or Amazon Elastic Container Registry. On Docker Hub, I can find community and official libraries. This is one of the things I really like about working with containers. If I'm working with a new technology, there is a community creating images that I can learn from and use to build my own applications. I can also create my own images. We will do exactly this in our next exercise. Containers lend themselves well to microservice architectures. Microservices are a service-oriented architecture where we decompose an application into a collection of loosely coupled smaller services. This brings some pretty big benefits to our development teams. We can work autonomously, developing and scaling our services independently. When we are working autonomously, each team is making different decisions about the technology they are going to use to build the service. One team might want to build in Ruby, and another team wants to build in Python, and another team needs a very specific version of PHP on Ubuntu. By containerizing our services, we can create a container as a lightweight artifact that holds everything we need to deploy the service: the operating system, the libraries, configuration, and the application. This makes it easy to share my application with a coworker or with a team who manages the deployment. We can now jump over to my laptop to look at a working example with Docker. So here we are inside of Cloud9 where Docker is actually installed and configured. And on the other tab here, I'm looking inside of Docker Hub and I see there's an Nginx container. Let's launch that container on my Cloud9 instance. I'm going to do a docker run command. -IT says I want an interactive terminal. I'm also going to map the port on the container. The container is exposing port 80, and I want to map that to port 8080 on my host. Now Docker is tripping off to the registry and pulling down the image onto my host and launching it as a container. The container is launched, and now I can go to the preview window. Because I have something exposed on port 8080, I can preview that inside of Cloud9. And that's how quickly I just pulled down and ran Nginx on my Cloud9 instance. Let's break out of that. I can do exactly the same thing with -D to say have it run as a daemon. That is now running, and I can preview that again. Nginx is running as a container, and Docker PS will give me the list of currently running containers. I can also do something on here. The container has a randomized name in this last column here. Sometimes you want to get inside of your container or run another process in the container. And for that, we can use docker exec. Again, I want the interactive terminal. This is the name of the container that's running. And I want to run a bash shell inside that same container. And here I am inside the same Nginx container. This is a handy way to debug things, to see where things live inside your container when you are designing your own images and hosting your own applications inside the container. And the very last thing I will do is docker kill, which takes the name of the container again, which just ended the container for me. Docker PS will say, now there are no containers running on the instance. So that was a very, very quick introduction to launching and running a container on your Cloud9 instance. In a follow-up exercise, we will also create your own image and launch that on the instance.